Looking to take your financial knowledge to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to Ask Ralph, offering accounting, technical, and financial advice. Whether you're looking to save taxes or improve your business, he's got you covered. Here's your host of Ask Ralph, Ralph Eastup Jr.
Welcome back to the Ask Ralph program. Today I thought I'd talk a little about the 12 questions that you should ask whenever you're choosing a tax preparer. Now there's a great article here by Kelly Phillips Erb. She's on the Forbes staff where I got a lot of the questions that she came up with, and then I also used some documents from the Internal Revenue Service that sort of, bring this all together. But I thought I would go through these 12 questions to ask when choosing a tax preparer. And the first question, this is, do you have a PTIN? Well, what is a PTIN? This is a Preparer Tax Identification Number. And this should be your first question, because the IRS rules state that without a PTIN, a tax preparer is not allowed to prepare your return. Now, even if they tell you that they do have one, you can verify this by going to the Internal Revenue site online and look up their PTIN. Now, just remember, as I mentioned in another broadcast before, just because someone has a PTIN doesn't necessarily mean they have the education and experience to do your return, but at least they've paid their fee and they've gone through a bit of a background check. Second question to ask, what is your tax background? And this gets into a discussion of, what is this person's experience? What credentialing do they have? Are they an accountant? Are they simply a tax preparer? It goes back to that PTIN discussion. I would always recommend that somebody work with either a public accountant or a certified public accountant. But again, make sure that they have experience in taxes, because just because someone's a CPA or a public accountant, they may just do auditing work and they may not have any experience in that particular tax realm. Number 3, and this gets a little bit more in depth into the discussion of experience. Have you prepared a blank tax return before? What am I talking about here? For example, what I'm talking about here is, let's say that you are a client that has rental property, or you're a client that has a small business, or you're a client that has, some K1 income from a trust or an estate. These are all questions that you need to ask the person that's going to be looking to do your tax preparation. And if you have special circumstances because of your investments, occupation, or residency status, you need to find a tax preparer who has experience with your specific situation. And then you basically want to ask the next question, will you be the one handling it? I know in my practice, I'm the person who meets with the clients, and I'm the person who actually prepares the returns. So when I'm meeting with my clients, they're understanding I'm going to be the one doing the work. And we can talk about, do we ever have this type of return? And frankly, I've had situations where a client has said to me, hey, Ralph, have you ever done this type of return? And sometimes I have to say, no, I never have. But here is the things I will do. And, a lot of times what I will do is discount a return if it's something that I've not handled before, or I won't charge them for the particular schedules. The next question you want to ask, question number 4, is, do you know the requirements of the states and localities where I'm required to file? Now, a lot of clients will ask me, hey, Ralph, I'm moving to North Dakota. Can you continue to do my tax return? Well, sure, I can do that. But I'm not 100% sure that it's really the best fit anymore, because when you move to a new location, I'm not saying that, you can't use the same accountant that you've had before. But you want to make sure that that accountant understands the particular state and local ordinances that are relative to the tax return they need to prepare for you. And, quite frankly, there are some quirky filing requirements, especially for business owners. And you also may need the special guidance if you own a business or real estate in a state outside of your residency. I have a lot of clients that might, live in Delaware but work in Pennsylvania, and that's something that I'm very good at, and I do a lot of returns with those. But you need to make sure that the person you're going to be engaging has that understanding. Question number 5 you should ask, what records and other documentation will you need from me? And this is a key thing. A reputable preparer should insist that you provide them with source documents. The main source document for the average person is a W-2 form. If you ever have anybody say to you they're willing to prepare and e-file your return just using your pay stub, they are breaking the law. Run away as fast as you can, because the IRS rules say a preparer must have a copy of your W-2. But that goes along with 1099s for any investment income you have, or small business income, 1098s for your mortgage, and then verification of some income and expenses. Now, we're not expected to audit your return, but we should be asking questions. One of the things that we require of our clients is to provide a tax organizer that basically goes through the normal questions. Now, not everybody completes that, but we give it to them so that we can say, listen, we gave you this so that you would, jar your memory if any of these things or relevant to your tax preparation this year? Question number 6, how do you determine your fees? Now, this should be well defined in an engagement letter. And if your tax preparer is not having you sign an engagement letter, you need to ask them about that and ask them for a fee schedule. Make sure you understand the total cost. Be wary of those tax preparers who say, well, we're going to charge you based on your refund, because it gives them, not everybody's going to get a refund. First of all, it could be a mitigation of tax or a reduction of tax. Number 7 question to ask, what about the extras? What am I talking about that? For example, ask them, do you e-file my return for free? Do you give me a copy of my tax return? They're supposed to. So you can also ask them about, do you keep their digitally copy of your return, that sort of thing. Question number 8, can I file electronically? And what you need to know here is that most accountants are required to file tax returns electronically. So if they're telling you that they're not going to, you have to ask yourself the question about number 1, why? And then, how many clients do they really work with? Number 9, who will sign my return? This is a mandatory thing. You must not trust a preparer who refuses to sign a return or asks you to sign it as self-prepared. That's a complete no-no. Number 10, when will I receive a copy of my return? And I get this question a lot. My clients will say, well, I went to Joe and I dropped off my stuff, and it's like, he'll never get back to me. I never understand when I'm going to get a copy of my return. I've even had clients say to me, yeah, I know he said he filed my return, Ralph, but I've never got a copy of it. If your return preparer can't provide you a promised date for the copy of return, you need to run away from them, because you need that copy for your records. Number 11, how do I find you, meaning the accountant, if you have a question or problem after tax season is over? And this really affects like the national tax return companies. I don't want to use names, but these folks that are here today, gone tomorrow. You want to look for a tax preparer that will be around throughout the year, so that when something happens, you'll be able to get back to them. That's one of the things we pride ourselves in our practice is, hey, we're here year round. This isn't a hobby for me. This isn't a part-time gig. And the final question is, what happens if I get audited? Again, this is the type of thing that should be addressed in the engagement letter that your preparer is sharing with you. And, not everybody represents clients in an audit, so it shouldn't necessarily be a deal breaker, but you should understand, what are my rights and what are obligations. One of the things that we note in our engagement letter is, ultimately the tax return, this is the client's tax return. We want you to review it. We want you to pay attention to the details of it, but ultimately it's your return. So you want to choose a good tax preparer. It requires a little bit of research on your part. I definitely recommend referrals and talking to other people. And the key to this, and I've said this time and time again, is you want to develop a relationship with this person. This is somebody that you should have consistency with. I sure hope this has helped you look for what you need to do when you're looking for a tax preparer.
You've been listening to Ask Ralph, brought to you by Saggio Accounting Plus. Please subscribe to and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. Our podcast is produced by Carolyn Peters. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Ask Ralph Media. You can also hear me each week on 1450 WILM and on 1410 WDOV in Delaware, and on the iHeartRadio app. Submit your questions or ideas for future shows by sending an email to AskRalph@AskRalph.com.
The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.